Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, am I excited about today. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. Think we should find an alternative word for the word fail. When you try and fail, the word should be discover. Steve Sims, our guest today, the one and only great friend of the Culture Matters podcast. In fact, if you haven't heard episode 11 from season one of the Culture Matters podcast, our guest today was actually on season one of the Culture Matters podcast, episode 11. I think it was called We're Not in Kansas Anymore or something like that. They have been a mentor to people for decades. In the last handful, they decided to actually accept payment for that advisory, not only around media, branding, positionings, authorship, and speaking, but how to strategize, get yourself in places you otherwise wouldn't be invited to. They have a new book that I just actually listened to twice called Start Go for Stupid. I just get Go for Stupid. Yeah, read it twice. Can't remember the name. Go for Stupid. And I got so much from it. I want to unpack today. And of course, Bluefishing, which was a huge success. We originally met in Vegas and have been friends. Oh, that sounds maybe like a bad thing. It was a great thing. It was a work thing and been friends since. But yeah, thank you for your support. Season one, and we're into season almost 50. Steve, thanks so much. I challenge everybody to listen to that show. Episode
Hey,
11.
congratulations for making it to 50. A lot of people do not, so it's a big accolade.
I'm almost emotional to think like you actually supported me in the beginning.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
thanks so
look,
much.
it's podcasts are weird. You get some people that'll do podcasts and then they'll stop at episode 10, they'll have no followers, and then all of a sudden someone will pick up on that episode from like first season, third episode, and all of a sudden it skyrockets. So it's really weird. But I judge the person and the point before I judge the followers. I knew what you were trying to do. We'd obviously met and hung out a few times, bumped into each other. So I kind of had an inkling that you were going places. So I was just proud to be there.
Thanks so much. Actually, on that for a second, the person versus the followers. What brought you to that distinction over time? In your wisdom, working with so many people.
It isn't wisdom, it's just gut. If you can get on with someone, you can relate to someone, and there's no friction in the communication, well, that to me is an easy life. And I'm getting too old and too grumpy to have any kind of friction. So when you see these people going, oh, you want to be on my show? I got 5 million followers, and I'll talk about you from me jet, and oh, look at me. That's not me. And so there's a friction, and more importantly, a disconnect. But we were just two guys hanging out, chatting. Hey, I want to do this. I've just got a podcast. It's fresh, it's new, but I want to do this. And I was like, yeah, I want to play in that. I want to play in that sandpit. So I just talk to people, like people. And I have noticed the richer you get, doesn't mean you're any less of a dick. So I'm really focused on making sure that I deal with the people with a real low friction count.
How does that affect the long-term customer relations in your respect, in your view?
What do you think? Put it this way. How hard is it for you to phone up someone you like talking to versus someone that you don't want to? So if you've got someone that you easily get on with, it just makes life easier. I look at my coaching and I'm very choosy on who I allow. So I look at my calendar and I've got these phone calls with friends that just want to disrupt their industry. There's nothing better than waking up in the morning going, oh, I got 2 of those. That's fantastic. So if you're dealing with someone that's actually, like Joe Polish says, is a half mentality, hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. If you're dealing with someone that's got a half mentality, then it frustrates you. And when you've had a frustrated day, how happy are you at the end of the day? You're not. So if at the end of the day, all you've done is spent time with people that you can connect with, you can jointly come up with ideas of how to disrupt what they're working on. By the end of the day, you are pumped. And that's what I want to be. Every single day, I want to be that.
But let me get this acronym right. You said harsh, annoying, lame. I missed the frustrating.
It's half. And again, Joe Polish is the one that came up with that. He
Okay.
came up with two kinds of people. The first one is an elf person, easy, lucrative, and fun.
Wow.
ELF. And he came up with half people, HALF. Hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating.
That's brilliant. So
Yeah,
when
that
you're
was Joe.
thinking and you're interviewing through, are you figuring out, hey, what camp is this going in and how I'm going to pursue that?
100%. A lot of the times, I like Joe, I've known Joe for many, many years. You've got some kind of idea in your head of how things work. You just can't put it into words. And then
Wow.
you meet someone that's smart that goes, actually, this is what you're doing. And without you realizing it, that's what you were doing. But I always believed that I didn't want to have an annoying life. And the older I got, I just thought, I don't want angst. I don't want friction. I don't want show offs, which does two things. It makes it easier for you to communicate with people because you're not there to suffer fools. You're there to stir shit up and disrupt industries. So you end up with like this joint mentality and a real ease for those people to connect with. You see, in today's world, a lot of people will market and brand badly. And so they will put out this persona, this image of the person they are, and they will attract people to that shiny object only to get into a conversation to realize, I don't really like that person. But if you can turn around and go, hey, I like calling it as it is. I like disrupting industries. I like trying things new. I like seeking out failure to become more educated. I ride motorcycles and maybe drink too much bourbon. Do you want to play in my sandpit? Then guess who you end up with in your sandpit? And that's a brilliant way to be today in a
Yeah.
world where we're really getting bad at communicating.
What suggestions do you have for audience that's trying to uh, has an interest in being more self-aware about their brand? So there's that alignment between the in person and then how they're perceived through the.
Yeah, the trouble is 9 times out of 10, when people are trying, it becomes a you problem. How's my hair look? How am I looking on screen? Oh my God, I've got to show more cleavage. Oh my God, I've got to lean up against a car I don't own. Oh my God, I haven't got an expensive watch on. I better get a fake or hock out all my credit cards to rent one, for this video shoot.
Sure.
Those are all you problems. Here's the fact. Here's the simple fact. If I can say something that's going to save you pain, you don't give a shit what watch I'm wearing, what car I'm driving, or what the freaking hell I look like. If I can save you pain, if I can save you problems, if I can save you years, you'll listen to me every single second. And that's what people need to focus on. Stop focusing on you. Start focusing on the problem that you are the solution to.
Mhm. Start focusing on the actual value that you're bringing to audiences.
Every time, every time. You're a value prop. Stop trying to look like a poster child for some kind of boy band or some kind of porn movie.
Wow. I want to give you a testimony for your book. In the beginning, when you telling a story about putting on Andrea Bocelli
Oh
singing
yeah.
for this, I'd like you to unpack that story a bit. And it was a sentiment about a gentleman that said, "No one asked." Man,
Yeah.
I stopped cold in the bathroom at a hotel, and I'm like, "I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this." So can you just that's my testimony. Everybody get the book. It's really, really powerful because some of these things, these are blind spots. But yeah, can you tell that story?
Sure, sure. I will say straight off the bat, they don't even have to buy the book. They can go to goforstupid.com and actually watch the videos. I'll read it to you for free.
Well, that's
We
great.
actually did a video rather than an audio and then scraped the audio for the audio book. It left us with all of these videos. So we just released it for free. But here's the weird thing. A lot of us don't realize what's going on until it's pointed out to us. And I'd had a client of mine that wanted a dining experience in Florence, and I used to run this concierge firm, and I ran it not because I wanted to hang around with celebrities or go backstage, on stage, or on red carpets, but I wanted to communicate with hugely affluent and powerful people and ask them, hey, how do you look at time? How do you look at money? How do you look at relationships? So I've always said that I was podcasting before podcasting was invented.
Wow.
And I became someone called me the nice Ray Donovan. The real Wizard of Oz was Forbes. Wall Street Journal called me the most connected man you've never heard of. But it was just this thing. I was the Mr. Fix-It to billionaires. And I had this guy wanted to have a dining experience in Florence. And that was all I was challenged with. Steve, I want an amazing dining experience in Florence. Me, my fiance, the future mother-in-law and father-in-law, and her best mate was in town. So get us something cool, amazing dining. And that was it. So I always want to see how far I can go with things. And I ended up taking over the Accademia de Galleria, the museum that houses Michelangelo's David. And at 9 o'clock at night, they turn up to that own private museum at the feet of the most iconic statue in the world, more famous than the Statue of Liberty. And then I want to see how further I could take it. And in the end, I got Andrea Bocelli to serenade him during their main course. Now, that was obviously fantastic. That was obviously incredible. And I was there going, I can't believe I pulled this off. This a bit. And then something kind of happened. There was a guy in there, and I tell the story probably better in the book, but there was a guy that was the curator, and I've never given out his real name because we're dear friends now, and I don't want to do that. But he kind of gave me some attitude. So when the powers to be, when the big dogs turned around and went, we're allowing Sims to have this, do what he says, the guy gave me a little bit of friction. And I would say, hey, I need the doors available at 8 o'clock and I need security for Andrea to come in. It was a case of, hey, we'll see what I can do. And there was no kind of urgency. And he did that 3 or 4 times. And to be honest with you, it started to pee me off. On the night that we threw the event, I wanted to, and this is where I'm an immature prick, but I wanted to kind of like just point out to him that, hey, you know, be a little bit nicer to the people that, you know, that can kind of thing. And so I wanted to kind of slap him down a peg, you know, again, very immature, but that's the truth of it. And so I said to him, I said, clients hadn't turned up yet. So we had the table set up. We had David, the iconic statue. We had Andrea Bocelli warbling, just getting ready. We had a string quartet there. We had people throwing rose petals all down the floor. So it was all being set up. And I said to him, I went, hey, you know, look at this. How beautiful is that? And he was like, oh, it's fantastic. It's amazing. It's brilliant. And I said to him, oh, if you're going to have an Italian meal, is it better than that table? Look at that table. It looks beautiful. And the food is going to be incredible. So, oh, it is wonderful. It was amazing. It's fantastic. And I went, look at this. We got Andrea Bocelli, the most famous Italian singer alive, that's going to serenade the clients while they're eating their main course. You know, he was like, it was brilliant. And so being immature, I turned around to him and I said, so how come I pulled this off? And this was where I was expecting to slap him down. This was where I was expecting him to go, yeah, I know. You're very well connected, Steve. You know, you're powerful. You're great at communicating. He literally just looked at me and he went, no one's ever asked. And the thing that hit me was I ask and I get places, but I hadn't realized just how simple that is. And you say to someone, hey, if you want something, just ask. And like, oh, I can't do that. It's got to be more complicated than that. Do you know, 20 out of 10 times, it's not. Just freaking ask for what you want. And you'll be surprised how many times you get it. And in the book, I talk about how for the next 6 months, that night impacted me so much that I literally spent time just going through past emails up to 5 years back, just contacting people from like rock stadiums, from, you know, shows, from movies, all these amazing things that I did in my careers, the access, the doors that opened, and was like, hey, do you remember when we did this with Elton John, Tom Cruise, the rock band Journey, Guns N' Roses? Hey, I was just wondering, how come we ever pulled that off? And you know, there was not one person that answered anything different. They all turned around and went, whoa, you asked, Steve.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And the bottom line of it is, you'll have, if I said to you, hey, I can do this for you if you give me 20 grand, or you can do it yourself by asking, You'll be amazed at how many people will try and spend the 20 grand rather than suffer the potential embarrassment of
Wow.
getting a no. But you know, the funny thing is, I can say no to you all day. It's not gonna cause your nose to bleed. It's not gonna make you fall over. It's not gonna stop your mortgage getting paid. It's not gonna stop the gas in your tank. You know, it does nothing to you. But we're terrified of that two-letter word. And it's a shame.
You think that rejection has a big piece of this and
Huge. I
procrastination?
actually spoke to a friend of mine, David Allred, and he actually went deep into the psychology of the no and rejection. You see, we've been around on this planet for hundreds and hundreds of years. But believe it or not, we haven't actually evolved as much as we like to think we have. You know, anything sexy still sells. You know, you'll walk past a bush, and if it rustles because there's a little animal in there, we're suddenly kind of like clamp up. You know, we look at people in a dark alley and we're wary. You know, smells excite us. We're still basically animals. Now, if you go back to the early times, as we were growing up, the first thing that we needed to do as we were evolving was we realized we were stronger as communities. And we grew up as villagers. We became villagers. There were these people that looked after the kids. There were these people that went out and foraged for food. There were these people that went out and attacked the saber-toothed tigers. And there were these people that would take the skin and turn it into clothes to protect us during the winter. Everyone had their place. So when someone confronted the norm and got a no, they were then banished. And if you were banished from your village, 9 times out of 10, you died because you couldn't do everything yourself. So deep down in us, we look at that no as a banishment. And we're scared of being banished because the risk is we'll die in the woods, cold and alone. But that's not today. So you have to correct yourself and go, look, I'm harboring a habit for a million years of evolution which doesn't exist. If you ask someone, hey, can I do this? And they go, no. Well, why don't you try asking a different question? I got a no, but I was just wondering, why so fast did you say no to me? What about the question didn't you agree with or like? I'm just wondering, and I've done that. I've said to people, for a start, I learned something. Never ask a question where the person can say no. Because it's the easiest gut reaction. Hey, can I borrow a car? No. Instead of, hey, I've got something to do tonight. Would you mind if I could borrow that? I'd love to fill it up with gas, and on the way back, I'll even get it detailed for you. Would that be convenient for you? You know, you're rephrasing the question. Same thing. You want the bloody car. So if you, first of all, try to ask a question where it's not a direct yes or no. And then secondly, if someone does say no, they don't like to be challenged. If you say no, you put a line in the sand and you don't want me pushing you, because what will happen is you will push back. So what you do is, if you're stupid enough and you've made the mistake to allow that person to say no to you, go, hey, Jay, I hear you. Fair enough. I had to ask. You know, you respect that. Sure, Steve, you had to ask, but you got to know. I absolutely did. But I'd really like to get educated from this moment, if you don't mind. I know we're not doing it, but what made you say no to me so quickly? Did you not like the idea of us doing this? Was working with me not something that you were comfortable with? Did you not like the arrangement that it would be making to you financially? You start asking those questions and they start to reframe it. And you go, so you didn't mind working with me and you liked the arrangement that we had. So what was it? In fact, Jay, maybe, do you know I asked the question wrong? So instead of asking me, can we do this? Let me ask you, when would be the best time for us to do this? And all of a sudden you're rephrasing the question. I've come out of no conversations many, many times by first of all backing off and going, hey, I hear you loud and clear, Jay. But can we make this a learning moment? And all of a sudden you change the paradigm of the question.
How do you catch yourself in emotion or to not get sucked in? Or would you even phrase that differently? Like, So you're not instinctually responding with ego or something.
Well,
Just
look, ev- everyone knows everyone know ego kills. You know, everyone on the planet knows that it's the worst bloody reaction and feeling you can have. All right. It's just ridiculous. So I like to think that as strong and maybe as powerfully confident as I am because of repetition and education, I don't think I've got an ego. So if someone says no, I'm after what I want. For me to suddenly puff my chest and go, whoa, there, did you just say no to the Almighty? Where's that going to get me? You know,
you know
it's
who I
not.
am?
Yeah, do you know who my father is? You know, please tell me. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous to try and do that. It's an empty game. So these people that, and 9 times out of 10, here's the other thing. You're doing something that really benefits you way more than it's benefiting the person. Like in the situation of Florence, the curator wasn't making any money out of it. He had been instructed to look after me, you know? So in which case he was making no financial benefit from staying up late at night to keep the bloody museum open. He was making literally no benefit whatsoever. If anything, he was pissed off that he had to do it because of me. So ego would have only have made it worse.
Mm,
Now, my ego or my immaturity made me want to kind of pick on him.
mm.
Once I'd pulled everything off, I was like, oh, I'm going to give this guy a little slap just to let him know who he's dealing with. That was maybe my ego coming into poke. But I've learned and I've tried to realize that ego gets you nowhere. And when they're saying no, maybe just get this practiced in your head. Maybe they just didn't understand the question,
Mm.
you know, and kind of think of it like that.
What advice do you have for the aspiring helpers, service providers of the affluent that want to earn the business of those that are in it, in a different paradigm? The affluent,
Yeah.
those, that the higher.
So there's a few things that I've noticed. The affluent, and I know you deal with a lot of affluent people, so you'll understand what I'm saying
Well,
here.
selfishly, I'd like more.
Well, there you go. There you go. But the affluent are not brilliant at everything. They may be superstars at one or two things that has made them very financially viable in the planet, but they're not superstars and everything. You haven't got a guy that's brilliant at doing widgets that's also an amazing basketball player that can, fly a jet and that could do. Everyone is good at a few things, but they're not brilliant at everything. They're human beings. Also, we've noticed that over the generations and over the recent decades, more money has been made than passed down through trusts and those kind of things. So in which case, you've got a lot of people, some of them, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, all of the Oprah Winfrey, all of those people know what it's like to count the coins in their pocket to be able to buy a pint of milk. Every single person. Now, here's the dumb thing. All of us have had those moments where we've gone, shit, do I do this or do I do this? Because you've only got a certain amount of money. Do I pay the mortgage or do I pay for the kids' school fees? Do I keep the electric on or do I go and buy some more food? Every single one of us at one point in our life, or maybe a few times even, have had that moment where we've had to consider, what do we do with our money? When you're affluent, it's not an experience, it's a removal of that pain. They no longer have to worry about the price. You can speak to an affluent person, go, hey, how much is a pint of milk? They probably can't tell you. I can't tell you. And I ain't got Oprah Winfrey's money. But I don't know. But there was a time when I would go around the supermarket knowing exactly how much change I had in my pocket so that I didn't get dinged for overage. And we remember that pain. In fact, I remember when I came to America. In America, you're given a price of something and then you get to the till and they add the tax, don't they? So you say to someone, how much is that? And they go, oh, that's like $500. And you go, oh, yeah, okay, I'll buy that. And then you get to the till and they go, that'll be $550. And you're like, I remember the first time going,
Wow.
you just told me it was, and they're like, dude, it's tax. Do you know the funny thing was,
Wow.
the first time I came to America in 2000, now I'd moved from a penthouse in Geneva, so I was not worrying about money, but I still had that feeling. The second that he told me it was 10% more than what I had accepted, I was like, oh, is that okay? I just had that feeling
Wow.
because you remember those things. So when you're speaking to the affluent, understand that they are poor people with more money. They know what the pain is, they know what it's like, and they're looking for the value and they're looking for clarity. And the dumb thing is, there used to be a saying in Palm Beach, because when I moved over from Geneva, I moved to Palm Beach for some strange reason. But when I was living in Palm Beach, there was a saying in there that the richer you got, the more British you got. Because all of a sudden, there was this accent. They would send me a hello, oh, how are you? What do you want about? You sold shoes, you're now making $10 million, but you're not the queen. All of a sudden, people would change because they felt that you had to change because so many people started speaking to you differently. You'd walk into a shop, a Ferrari store, and the guys would be like, "Oh, good afternoon, sir. Oh, how are you, sir?" And they would suck up, and it would force you to respond like that. So, in the world of the affluence, they know what it's like to focus on the value of the dollar. So, if you can talk to them as poor people with a lot of money, you're talking to them as a human being. And if you can focus on the value that you provide, and here's a real key one, and being different to your competitors, not better, then you stand out as something different. You've got a value stack that they want, and you know how to talk to them in their language. That's what's going to get you through the door. I would see so many times. In fact, I'll give you a story. I went to a party in Ojai, and this guy, he collected jets.
Wow.
I thought, who collects jets?
Wow.
But he literally had a whole bunch of jets. And in his garden up in Ojai, he's got this old vintage warplane that just sits there in his freaking garden. And there was this party that he was having. I can't remember what the party was for. And there'd been these guys that had actually turned up that I knew that owned a jet charter company. And they were trying to get him to do business with them, and also trying to get his friends to do business with that charter company. So I knew what they were after. And they were in front of me at the lineup as we were going into this party. And they've got this bag. And they turned around, they've gone, "Oh, Steve, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, hello, guys, how are you?" And they're like, "I take it you bought a good present." And I went, "Oh, it's okay." And I said, "What did you do?" And they went, "Oh, we bought him some wine." And I went, "Oh, great. I didn't know you guys knew about wine." And I knew these guys. They were salespeople for this. They weren't the sharpest tools in the shed, I'll be honest with you. But I said to them, "Oh, I didn't know you liked wine." And they went, "Oh, well, we don't really know much about wine." I said, "Well, this guy collects wine and he's got more money than God. So don't you think he's probably got the best wines out there?" And they went, "Oh, we got some good ones here." I went, "So you've gone and got a couple of bottles of wine from the checkout girl at Bevmo, and now you think you're some kind of like sommelier, and that you're going to tell this guy that, that you got this great wine." I said, "You know the funny thing about this story? He's not even going to see your wine."
Wow.
And they were like, "What do you mean?" I went, "Anytime you go to these kind of parties, there's always someone at the door that takes the gift and puts it to the side. He's not even going to see it's your wine until maybe a couple of days later when someone goes, 'Oh, and these people gave you the wine.'" So they're like, no, it's okay. Of course, we get to the door, they take the wine, they stick it in a corner. When I saw the guy, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to be doing some uncorkings this evening." And I went, "Do you ever get the foil on those as well?" And he went, yeah. There'll either be foil or there'll be wax on the bottle. And I said, "Well, I don't really drink wine." I said, "I don't know much about wine. Wife likes a bottle of wine, every now and then." I said, "But the bloody thing I really hate? It's getting that sodding foil off the top, because it always cuts me fingers, or I'm picking off that wax and it's all getting stuck in my nails." So I bought this little plug, and it's this little plug that goes over the top. You spin it, and it's got these little like pizza wheels in it that takes the foil or takes the the wax seal off it. And I went, so I bought it for you for your birthday. Oh, that was it. It was his birthday. So I gave it to, it was that big. I had wrapped it. I think it may have cost me $3. So when he was uncorking these wines in front of everyone, he stood there and he went, oh, but actually, Steve just gave me this. Thanks, Steve. I'm going to use this forever. How good did I look? He's opening up $1,000 bottles of wine and he's using my little thing to take the little wax off the top of them, because I thought of what was the experience rather than competing with him on his knowledge of wine. And that's where people get wrong. Don't think you have to buy an expensive present. You have to buy a thoughtful one. And that thought can cost $3.
Is that tie into your theory around different, not better?
Yeah, you see, the trouble is with better is when you're better than better, it's usually a conversation that ends up in money. Oh, I'm better than him because I'm $30 cheaper, which is a astronomical fast way of becoming bankrupt. But if you're different, you're uncomparable. So if you can make sure that, and that would be me, like when I started this business, I had motorcycles. I didn't have a car. I couldn't afford a car. I had this shitty Honda. Then I started traveling the world and I hated the congestion. I hated the fact, especially when I lived in Bangkok and Hong Kong, you could literally spend a third of the day just in the freaking taxi getting you there. So I would buy these little motorcycles. I would get there in 10 minutes, do the meeting, I would be back. Most of my friends hadn't even got there. I could literally run 3 or 4 meetings in a day where they were on a 1 meeting a day process. So I was just like, I was clearing up because I'd been on this motorcycle. But all of a sudden, I became this big British fella with no hair and a beard, turning up on a motorcycle and doing it. It became my brand. And I was very different. Now, of course, I couldn't wear a suit on the motorcycle. So I'd always turn up, leather jacket, motorcycle motorcycle helmet in my hand. And people were like, well, other people are turning up and they've got a suit on. They're like, oh, how are you, sir? And I'm walking in going, hey, Jay, how you doing? I'll stick my helmet here. Right, what are we doing? And I became different. Now you couldn't compare me with anyone.
Wow. Another thing, when you got involved, as far as I want to understand this, like with Bluefishing and the speaking, very quickly, I believe you rose to people being interested in having you speak on the stages, advise, mentor. You did it very quickly. What would be some of the strategies that you evoked, or how did you accomplish that so quickly? I think it's a testament to your actual training for people to listen to, because you actually
Yeah.
did that very quickly. Unless I missed a portion of it, but it
No,
was
I don't think you did. And I do have some answers. And the answers are gonna be so basic and so simply stupid. Everybody, you see, I didn't think anyone would really care. And when I wrote the book Bluefishing, I literally wrote a book that Simon and Schuster paid me a disgusting amount of money to write. And
wow.
oh yeah, I got paid. I front loaded the book. And if anyone knows anything about selling a book, you either get a small retainer and then you get revenues. I was like, no one's going to buy this book. So I front loaded it. I sold the rights to it. All of it. So I got a massive, great check at the beginning, which also allowed me to write the book I wanted to write. So I didn't
Wow.
hold back. And I thought to myself, yep, you want to do this, you do this. And this wants to happen, you do it. And it was Bluefishing, the art of making things happen. It became a bestseller and translated, I think it was 8 different languages, and it became bestseller in loads of different countries. It was incredible. And then I thought to myself, people love to ignore the simple stuff. They would rather pay out that pain. Oh, I'll give you 10 grand to do it, rather than you just focusing on what needs to be done and putting the work in yourself. You know, people would rather pay $1,000 on a tablet than go on a diet. You know, it's just simple. People fundamentally are freaking lazy. So when the book came out and people were like, oh, you do this, you do this, I was like, hang on a minute. This is really good. Will you speak at our stage? So the first thing I did was I got a speaking coach.
Wow.
Because I love to save myself years. I want to save myself time. Time's the only thing we can't buy on Amazon. So I want to save myself time. If I want to know about financial advice, I'm gonna get a financial advisor to run me through everything. If I want to get ripped for a movie, I'm gonna get someone that can make me ripped. I'm gonna invest in talent that can save me time. So I got this guy who taught me how to give a speech, but he didn't teach me how to get the speech. And I noticed that there was a real difference. It's like teaching someone how to write a song, but then no one teaches you how to get a recording contract, and distribute it. So I realized that there was an element missing. I didn't want to speak on stages, but it was very profitable. And the ROI on that credibility is huge. So I realized, okay, how do I make sure that I can get more gigs, more ROI, and again, do this quickly? And so again, I started going out and speaking to a lot of people, and I realized you've got to have a crystal clear brand. And that comes first. If you don't have a good, solid brand, now I say good, Hitler's got a brand, okay? It doesn't mean that he's a bloody angel, but he's got a brand, you know? Guns N' Roses have got a brand. Donald Trump's got a brand. But the trouble is, let me pick on this, and we're not getting political, but we're using it as an example. A while back, we had Hillary Clinton going up against Donald Trump. Donald Trump, you could have asked a 5-year-old, what is Donald Trump standing for? He would have said, make America great again, build a wall. Repetition, repetition. That's what a brand is, repetition. What is Hillary Clinton standing for? We didn't know. We honestly didn't know. There was no repetition of brand status. Now, in today's world, there's a lot of noise. I want to know what you're talking about, and I want it quick, because I don't have a lot of patience. I don't have a lot of tolerance. The world's lied to me. I've been told to get COVID injections. I've been told this, fake news. We don't trust anyone today. So the first thing in any part of your business is identify what your brand stands for and make it impossible to misunderstand. And when you can do that, then learn the structure of how to get a speaking gig. What does the audience want? I don't give a shit what you want. What does the audience want? Well, they want to learn these 3 things. Well, guess what I teach? I teach these 3 things. Make it impossible to misunderstand. So that's what I started doing. I first of all identified that anyone that was standing out had a brand. I didn't care if you liked them or not, but they stood for something and you had a reading on it. And so I built a solid brand, and then I put myself out there. Now I was very easy to either consume or walk away from. And thankfully, there was enough people out there that went, I like the way this guy shows up. I like what this guy has to stand for. And then it was a case of just riding the momentum that you had created.
Sims Distillery.
Sims Distillery was just because I got pissed off. The truth, a lot of entrepreneurs, we solve a lot of things by first of all being pissed off. There's a famous story of Elon Musk when he transferred money from one bank account to another bank account in the US, and he was told it would take 5 days. And he's like, well, it's not like someone's driving over to pick up the money and driving it across the country to deposit it into another bank. It's an email. It's an email of numbers. Why does it take 5 days? Well, we found out the reason was because the bank could play with it on the markets for 4 days. They could play with your money.
Wow.
But PayPal, he invented PayPal because he was aggravated with the American system. So we do things a lot when we're aggravated. I wanted to see how I could, again, save myself the years by understanding how better to market, better to brand, better to show up, better to throw events. And I went out to seek that information. Now, my son, who's 26, different chapter of his life, he wanted to know how to do those things, but he wanted to do them, to a younger generation or with more flair. He had the same kind of thing, but wanted different things. And we found out there were so many masterminds and clubs and groups out there that were theme or tactic specific. If you wanted marketing, you went here. If you wanted wellness and fitness, you went here. If you wanted to financials, you went here. If you wanted to learn how to speak on stage, you went here. Well, as an entrepreneur, we need all of those things. So we were trying to find a group. We probably, over a short period of time, spent about $250,000 in so many different masterminds. You know, we've been with Roland Frazier, Ryan Dice, Perry Belcher, Damon John, Joe Polish, been with so many different people, just consuming masterminds, that literally me and Henry sat down one day and went, we need to focus on the entrepreneur and the tools that they need when they need it. You may not need to speak on stage today, but you need to brand. Once you're branding, you may be making more money. So you need the financial acumen to be able to keep more of it. And then you need to know how to scale it. So you need the marketing. And when all of that pressure is going on, you need how to focus on your family, your health, and your fitness. Because you're useless to anyone if you're sick. So we built Sims Distillery, openly went out there and said, hey, we built this for you, the entrepreneur, because we were pissed off it didn't exist. And I think we got like about 67 members in there now that feel the same way. And so that's what we do. We're out there to try and help you be a much better entrepreneur.
And the speakeasies, when you get together, am I saying that right? Like there's actual pop-ups where people get together. That's tied to that?
That is exactly it. It's a pop-up that happens in different cities around America. We got one coming up at the end of September in New York, where we literally just tried, and we call them a speakeasy because they're shrouded in mystery of who's going to turn them. They're not alcoholic. We're not all getting shit-faced. They're masterminds. But they're never, the funny thing about it is they're never held in hotels. I hate hotel convention.
That's a breath of fresh air right there.
They're always in penthouses or music studios. We did one recently about 4 months ago in Venice Beach, in this converted beach house in Venice Beach. And then we went all cycling down the road on the boardwalk in Venice at like 7:30 in the morning. So they're always in these weird kind of eclectic. We did one of them that was in Frank Sinatra's music studio on Hollywood Boulevard. So they're always in like these weird kind of creative spaces that allow you to be weird and creative and therefore challenge the way you do and think about business.
Our audience, can they apply on the website to be a part of this community?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. The pop-ups you can actually pay for straight away. You know, you just go to simspeakeasy.com. But here's what happens. When you actually buy a ticket to the speakeasy, we're going to contact you. And we're going to go, hey, we need to know, why did you do this? And we interview everyone that tries to buy a ticket. And then if we think you're the kind of person we want in the room, we accept the charge and we tell you where it is and we look forward to seeing you. There's been a lot of people that we've gone, hey, we don't have a way of helping you at this event. We'll let you know in future events if we do. Or, hey, this isn't the right room for you and we just refund your money. But Sims Distillery, you can't even pay. You have to apply for a phone call before we even take you on. We don't want your credit card going through to be our point of acceptance. We want to know it's the right room.
This reminds me of in your books, you talked about when you worked the door and you would tell people, hey, come back in a couple of days. So like you mean what you're saying. I think I should say that, but like, why is that important?
You've got to protect the room. You know, at all costs. You know, let's say for argument's sake, you've got a group, and your group, for any of you entrepreneurs out there, let's say for argument's sake, you've got a group, you've got a client bank, you've got a room of people. Maybe they don't pay anything, okay? Maybe they pay $5,000 per person, whatever. Say for argument's sake, someone that comes along who's a toxic prick that's just out there to basically try and sell their hair products to your entire tribe. And they offer you 25 grand. Now you've been charging everyone else 5 grand, $50, all free. And you're like, this is 25 grand. And you take that 25 grand. My question is, are all of your tribe going to be happy that you did that? And the answer is no. A lot of your tribe are going to leave. So the question is, you got
Wow.
25 grand, but how much did it cost you? So we had someone in our distillery. They seemed nice.
Wow.
We took them on. They were in for a couple of months, but we suddenly started getting a bad vibe. We kicked them out. We said, "Hey, we've realized that we don't get it right all the time, and we've removed you from the group." Now they were very angry that we had removed them from the group. But you know, funny enough, the group turned around and went, "You know, thank you for doing that. You recognize, and you meant what you said, that if you don't show up properly to help support and challenge, that you will be removed. You protected your room by taking that person out of it." They loved it. They started telling their friends. We got about another 10 clients that went, "That's the kind of room we want to be in."
How do you coach someone through that's listening that feels they're in that position, but they're afraid or they're not, they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to have that conversation.
Yeah, a lot of people look at the checkbook, okay? And they look at that check and they look at that credit card and they go, "This is X and it can do this to me." You've got to think to yourself the opposite. Not what it can do for you, what will it do to you? Having that person in your room may give you like a shot of coke up your arm or something and may make you feel great for 10 seconds, but then it's going to ruin the attitude in the room. You're going to see your tribe go off. You're going to get you're going to get tarnished with you're the kind of person that will just take people's money just because you want the money. You don't care about the students. You care about the credit cards. So you have to focus. And it may seem tough, and I've been there. I've wanted to get, we had a thing a little while ago, Hollywood. This was about 2 years ago. And in 1 week, we charged $2,000 to go to a speakeasy. And this was Hollywood, so it's gone. So I'm not trying to sell you it. But we had 10 people in 1 week sign up for the speakeasy in Hollywood.
Wow.
And we, great, that's not too bad. It's 20 grand. Thank you very much. And we phoned each one of these people. "Hey, Johnny, you signed up for the speak. What made you want to do that? Tell me, how did you hear about us? Why did you want to be there? What do you think it's going to do to you?" Every single one of those 10 were like, "Well, I sell this and you're the kind of market that I need to sell it in. Oh yeah. And I know famous people and I need to get that person to sign my product. And oh yeah, I want to." We went through 10 people and we had to refund each one of them. We didn't make a single sale in that entire week that we didn't refund. It ended up being 30 grand in total. There were 15 people for Hollywood. I don't know, maybe it's Hollywood. Maybe you're the loonies are here in Hollywood, but
Wow.
we had to refund 30 grand of that one event over like a 2.5 week period, because if we'd allowed them in, what would that 30 grand have done to my community, to my reputation, to my image, to the feeling and respect of the event? It would have killed it.
Well, you protected the culture.
You've got to protect the culture. Look, taking a brand, building up a brand takes time. Destroying it takes seconds.
That's a good quote, Steve.
There you go. It's yours.
One thing I got to do about, I have to apologize because I shouldn't have taken this long to have you back on the show. Yeah, that was a good quote. I feel, wow. Well, obviously you're so busy winning, so it's
I
taking
appreciate
a while. Yeah, that's some good stuff. So those that are listening, best way to connect with you so they're not undermining the culture, so they're not just taking away their value add. Like, how can you best serve them? Who are you looking for? The types.
I always tell people I've got nothing that I want anyone to buy. Okay, because I don't know if you're ready. I don't know if I'm ready to talk to you. We don't know. So let's get that out of the way. So there's no hook here. I suggest two things. One, go to goforstupid.com and watch me read my book to you for free. Okay. If you like my voice, if you like my style, if you like what I'm saying, then maybe reach out to me. But I'd also recommend go to Instagram, Steve D. Sims, and just follow me. Look at what I'm saying. It may rub you up the wrong way. You may go, well, I don't like the thing he says about this, or I find that inappropriate, or, oh my God, I'm triggered. Just get all of that out of the way to discover whether or not you think I'm the kind of person that you want to stand next to propel you to whatever it is next. And, then we can talk. But for now, get a taste, find out if I'm the kind of person you really, really should have in your world.
One question, last question on, you mentioned disruption a few times in the beginning of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see opportunities in 25 for disruption, for standing out? This could be a
Where don't you?
cliffhanger, but
Yeah.
like the different versus better concept, right?
Yeah. For a start, you're 5 months away from not being out of a job, but being out of an industry. We've got the world moving at such a fast pace that what you're doing today may not exist or even be required. If you're a mortgage broker, why can't I buy my house online through blockchain? If you're buying cars, why can't I just have it delivered to me rather than have to talk to you? So dealerships, realtors, lawyers, there's so many things that we are in risk of losing. So what you've got to do is you've got to look at not being the best in your dying industry, but to disrupting it to a point where you can't be replicated. You've got to make sure that you are the standout so that when everyone is in a lineup, they can't put you in that lineup. And that's the focal point. Your business isn't going to be around. So therefore, how can you disrupt it, own it, and stand out with your skill set that no one can be compared to you? So you're the only obvious choice.
Thank you for coming back, my friend. Everyone that's listening to this, check out episode 11 of the Culture Matters podcast. Very different part of Steve's story. You can get a different side of the same coin. Come back, re-listen to this episode. Go to goforstupid.com. Follow Steve D. Sims on Instagram. Buy Bluefishing and the new book. And I appreciate you for coming back, my friend. This was a lot of fun.
I appreciate it. I hope people will do something with it.
Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.